you ever feel like your painting is almost there, but something's missing? The secret might be in a single subtle detail. It's so easy to add, anyone can do it. And once you try this technique, you'll see just how quickly it can transform your work. Hi, I'm Françoise. Welcome back to my channel. If you love watercolor or watercolor pencils that look loose, magical, and realistic, you're in the right place. Let's dive right in. I've developed a method around the glazing technique. I've labeled it the A.R.T method, A.R.T, to help you remember and actually use it. And that is exactly what I'm going to show you in this video because glazing is far more powerful than what most tutorials show. I'll start with this simple desert painting to explain what glazing really is for those of you who might not be familiar with it. Glazing resembles layering, but they serve different purposes. Layering is about building a painting from the ground up, adding more opacity and contrast step by step, which is exactly what you're seeing me do here as I'm starting to paint. Glazing, on the other hand, is more like a transparent filter you place over dried paint at a later stage of the painting. It's a thin, see-through wash of color that does not hide what's underneath. It just shifts the mood, the feel, and that's why it's incredibly simple yet powerful. And as you can see now, I'm glazing this desert scene with a warm, vibrant yellow, and that instantly brings more life and atmosphere to it. So glazing is actually a type of layering, but with a twist. And while many artists have mentioned glazing before, I notice it often stops at the surface. And that's where the A.R.T approach comes in. So we're going to dive into 3 ways you can start using glazing more intentionally with this approach. Before I start a beautiful waterfall painting that showcases the desert painting you just saw is available on my Patreon, so I'll link that below in the description in case you'd like to join me there for a small monthly fee and access over 100 real-time tutorials with my voiceover. Glazing is a technique typically used in the final stages of a painting. It's meant to enhance and elevate the art with a quick and translucent layer of color. But for it to have the intended impact, it needs to be applied at the right time and with purpose. As with any watercolor piece, the process begins by blocking in all your main colors. This first stage sets the tone for everything that follows, and from there, the painting is developed gradually, layering to building depth, intensify vibrancy, create contrast, add texture, and define details. And that's exactly what I'm doing in this piece, and it's the same method most experienced watercolor artists follow and recommend. And once you've established a solid foundation, that is when refinement begins, and this is where glazing becomes a particularly powerful tool. But it's not just about adding a thin wash of color wherever it seems convenient. Glazing should be intentional. The first way I use glazing is to adjust contrast and smooth out any harsh jumps between colors across the painting. You can really see what I mean in the waterfall. It looks flat and kind of lifeless next to the much darker, more detailed rocks. The issue here isn't that it's not realistic. The real problem is that it doesn't feel connected to the more colorful areas like the moss. It just stands apart too much. That's where glazing comes in. Adding a bit of color to the waterfall helps tie it back in with the rest of the painting. And the beauty of glazing is that it lets you do this in a really subtle, natural way without overworking anything. If you've followed the channel or taken any of my courses, you know that I already build my paintings around a plan of light, mid, and dark values. I want my midtones to feel vivid because they're what make the contrast with the darker values more exciting. To choose those midtones, I look at the main colors in my reference. In this case, it would be the bright green from the moss because it really stands out. That's my base. Then, as a personal touch, I decided to add a vivid blue for the water and a rich quinacridone gold for the lightest parts of the rocks. That way, glazing just a thin layer of those colors over the waterfall helps tone down the contrast and help reconnect it visually with the more colorful areas nearby. It brings everything together in a way that feels more balanced because the water doesn't stand out awkwardly anymore. It still feels realistic, but now there's more of that spark that I like in a finished piece. But that's not the only way I use glazing because even when the painting looks realistic and the colors are vivid, things can still look a little bit stiff or dull. Realism has a way of doing that sometimes, and I want to focus on the rocks here as an example because they're a key part of this painting. There are a lot of them. They create that strong contrast with the much lighter waterfall too, and the two elements work really well together because of it. But when there are so many dark areas like this, it can all start to feel a little lifeless. The problem is it's accurate to the reference. But if you think about it, because this is a painting, there's no reason not to push things a bit further and give those shadows some energy. And again, the quickest and easiest way to do that is with glazing, with a goal to revive this part of the painting. This time I'm using quinacridone deep gold. Thanks to color mixing, I know it's going to work because I've used indigo and quinacridone gold before to create my dark browns. And that's not going to break the color harmony then. It's going to give a much warmer, livelier feel. It's also got just enough glow to breathe some life into those dark sections without changing the structure of the painting. And there is no need to go overboard here. I just pick a few spots within the rocks to glaze, and that's enough. Adds a warm, earthy richness that gently lifts the shadows and gives them a bit more depth, and is especially effective in landscapes like this one. I do have a special twist coming, but I'll save that for the very final stage of the painting. Before we move on to the T part of my method, let me know in the comments, is glazing something you already use in your work or is it new to you? Now, my favorite way to use glazing is to tie everything together in a painting. It's one of the most striking effects you can get, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Think about a real-life scene. Moss doesn't only grow in well-lit spots. It's often present in the darker, shadowed parts of the rocks too. And that's actually why the reference looks so dark overall. The moss is there, but the lighting keeps it subtle. The thing is, when you paint this kind of scene, clearly separating the moss and the rocks can start to feel a bit artificial, especially if the goal is realism. So here I'm glazing a light wash of phthalo green light over the mossy areas to bring them to life a bit more. But I'm not stopping there. I'm also gently glazing some of that same green into the shadowed sections of the rocks. It suggests that the moss continues into those areas even if we can't see it clearly, and it helps tie the whole surface together in a way that feels natural and believable. And because this is just a thin layer, notice it is not disturbing how the rocks are supposed to look at all. It is subtle, and again, that is the beauty of glazing. To someone just looking at it, they won't be able to explain why it feels so natural, but it does. Just like the two previous ways I've used glazing, this brings in consistency and harmony. This is the moment where the whole painting just clicks. The moss feels like it's part of everything, even the darkest corners. So, as you can see, glazing is one of the most useful tools to quickly and easily adjust contrast, revive dull or dark areas, and tie the whole painting together, all without having to redo anything. I mentioned the twist, and here it is. I've worked on highlights already, but now let's add an artistic touch that also looks striking in that case. With thick, almost pure paint now, the opposite of glazing in fact, I add color to key areas in the painting. It works when the paint is thick and fresh out of a tube rather than a pan. If you want to learn to paint in a loose, realistic style or learn all my tricks of the kind, I've got full courses that take you step by step, and you'll find links in the description below. Glazing is a great asset to this style because it is subtle, but it is powerful. So remember the A.R.T method and try it in your next painting. You might enjoy watching this video next, where I break down exactly how I achieve loose realism with anything I want to paint. Thank you for watching and see you next time.